Hello again, once more, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program and our career mode playthrough that's currently ongoing. Let's have a look into here, that one. Recently we've discovered I can't build a plane, but it's alright because I can't fly them either. Yeah, and what I need at the moment, well, what I need to do is basically, I'm trying to think which one of these it is. It's not that one. Not that one. What I need is that node unlocking, very specifically because I want that fuel tank. That's the equivalent of 2 of these fuel tanks. So why does that matter? Well, we're trying to get to Mun seriously, and we're having problems. And the problems we're having had is the parts count limit. So if I can get some of this, and indeed some of these larger fuel tanks might actually prove interesting as well. Possibly that one as well, which looks quite nice, which I think is part of the Soyuz bits. But something like that, in the current craft we have, that will save the dizzying heights of 3 parts. But what it means is I can start sticking more power into the thing. Now obviously that needs 90 research. Don't have 90 research, so how are we going to deal with that? Well, what I'm going to do is I am going to basically repeat the Mun orbit mission we did, which I think was the 5A. Well, yeah, it probably wasn't the 5A, it was one of the others, but now I've got the orbital maneuver planning stuff. I think using that as it currently stands, I'm going to take the Science Junior and I'm going to try and get a lot closer to the Mun this time. So we've got all of that. I know that works. We're not taking any tourists with us, it's just going to be Jeb. Let's see what I can do with this. Yeah. Now I'm actually going to make a slight change. I'm going to change the thrust limit on that engine to about 70%. So what this means is if I set the throttle to 100%, that's on 100%, that's on 100%, that's on 70. This should give me a slightly more efficient lift profile. Basically because it means I can have the outer boosters burning flat out while the centre engine isn't. So let us see what we can do with this. So we reset that to show what we're doing. Set throttle to full, and off we go. And straight away I'm going to start the gravity turn, which I'm going to try and make into a reasonable one this time. We shall see. I'm going to throttle back on acceleration slightly. What I'm trying to do is get the acceleration to stick it around 2G. I can do that by playing with the engine throttles a little, at least until we're a bit higher up. I think I've missed the gravity turn bit I needed. Yeah, I should be at about 45 degrees by now, and I'm not. But never mind, we shall see. We can cope. I'm not going to sit here and cry briefly. That comes later. Beverage of choice for today is water, because it's a nice day, so I'm going to stick with a bit of water. And see, now notice what we've managed here is the boosters are going to run out now way before the centre core does. So we've got rid of that, and now we can go to full throttle, which is, as I said, is 70%. And this is now headed to, so we are now going to go into orbit, and this is going to throw us reasonable, but I'm going to be doing it this way to go sideways a bit more. Basically I want to build up as much sideways velocity as I can using that stage. I'm then going to cut the throttle and stage and burn to get a little bit away from that. Right. Map. Have a little look. So straight off into Maneuver Planner, add Maneuver. Here we are. Orbit, don't need it to be anything like that big. Going to come down there like that. That'll do. Node in whatever, burn time such and such. Right, so that tells me I need to go full throttle, head that way. This is telling me I'm going to need to stage and use a little bit of my primary system fuel, which I don't mind. I can cope with that. So we shall see how this goes. As I noted before, the beauty of this little engine here, the Terrier, it's very efficient, but it's not very powerful. If you look down here, even at full thrust, we're not making 1G at the moment. But that's fine. Yeah, can cope with that. So here we've got saying the... I mean, we're burning a little ahead of where we actually need to here, but only a little bit. And I'm going to keep maintaining that, because I want us to be roughly equatorial. It doesn't have to be perfectly. As I say, the goal of this mission is to get to Mun. Only really need to be a flyby. Don't need to be orbit, really. And I want a low... I want quite a close pass. Because we've done space high over. I want space near is the next part. So we shall see what we can do with that. Basically that's going to give a chunk more science, which is the idea of this flight, and I can then do the EVA report, not the EVA report, the crew report near Mun as well. So hopefully we should be alright. So we're getting near what we need to be here. That, do that, a little bit like so. See, we're getting there. So there's not a vast amount more to get us into orbit. I'm probably not going to do the full burn because I only need to be in orbit. I don't necessarily need a perfectly circular orbit. Indeed, there is something called the O-berth effect, named after the bloke who sort of worked out how it worked. What that means is the closer you are to a gravity body, in this case Kerbin, when you fire your engines, the more effect you get. So, yeah, it's quite a good one. So that's going to come out here like this. It's going to zoom back. And they see now this is now telling me I'm going to get a Mun encounter. That is telling me how close to the Mun I will get if I do that. And the green line is the orbit I will be in afterwards. So what I want to do here is... And I can actually focus... You see, here I can focus on Mun. And that's useful. What I need to do is... Maneuver mode, toggle map. That. Staging is useful. No, I want that one. I want to go back here. What I need to do is bring that back up. And you see what I can do here is make very little adjustments quite easily. Because what I want to do is get that Mun orbit down to quite low. Don't know, I want 60. I might want a little bit lower than that. I don't know exactly how low I need to be. But if I do that burn... See, it's going to use 844 meters per second. I've got 1700, so I've got plenty. And that will put me in that green orbit afterwards, which isn't too bad. When I get up here, I can lower that and we can go home quite safely. And that is going to take me where I need to be. So what I'm going to do now is go back here slightly, and what I need... See, this is the other thing I need to watch is the battery power, because obviously this particular craft doesn't have the ability to do a great deal about it. So we're going to go there, so that's going to point me in roughly the right direction. Burn time is 50 seconds, so basically I need to be at minus 25. When I get to minus 25, I need to go back... Yeah, I've forgotten how to reset certain bits here, but never mind. So what we're going to do is speed up. And I must say, I'm aiming for that to be at about minus 40, and then I'll slow down. Then I can make sure I'm lined up nicely and what have you. So yes, that's just missed. And it's missed basically because I managed to keyboard responsiveness not being what it needed to be. But what this will show me is where I'm going to get to. I'm going to keep the manoeuvre node up. I will be getting rid of that very shortly. This manoeuvre node here is trying to... It's adjusting itself to get me where I've planned to be. So start to throttle down a little bit. See, this is something, before we had this manoeuvre planner, this mission was quite risky with, was I going to have the fuel to do it or not? Here, quite obviously, I do. This won't get me into orbit. It doesn't need to. What I need to do is just get myself back towards that node again. Get ready to cut that. There. Now what I want to do is change that so I get rid of that one. I just want to keep that one up. It's going to take me to 19,000 of that. So, see that's where we're going to go. So that's going to take me on a very close flyby of the Mun, which is exactly what I want, and is then going to put me on that purple orbit. As far as I'm concerned, that's brilliant. So I'm now going to turn stability control off. And again, we are going to speed up to go on our sweet way to the Mun. And I don't actually need to use any more fuel at this point. Reason being, what I'm actually just going to do, I'm going to tell it I want to... What I'm trying to... Tab. There is a way of saying I want to focus on the craft I'm using. There we are, Lord Art 5. I forget what that way is. There is a keyboard command that does it. So we're going to come out here like this. What I'm hoping is this is going to get me nearly enough science. It probably won't get me quite enough to go and grab those bigger engine parts, or rather the bigger fuel tanks. A proper Mun mission with only 30 parts, perfectly doable. What you need, however, is parts I don't have unlocked currently, and this is a career mode playthrough, so parts like this matter. So I'm going to warp to there. See, here we come like this. See, it works quite nicely. And we're going to drop back here, and now, somewhere around here, naturally completely in the dark, is Mun, which, brilliant. We're here, but we can't see it. Crew report, space high over the Mun still, so reset that. And I'm now going to warp there instead, so we'll be a lot closer. We will get some sunlight shots in a minute, and when we do, I'm going to take a screen grab. So you see, that's giving me 9 science, which I like. This one here, 45. You see, that's closer to what I needed. Right, and you see this little gap here. This means if I do this again, I can get that more of that science. We could beam this back. We do have communications. It would burn all our battery power. That would give us 15 science, which is quite good, really. But there we are. So what I'm now going to do is warp to there. Because now we've got a picture of the Mun. You see, here we are, Mun underneath us. So if you'll excuse me, I'm just going to grab a screenshot of that. So the screen will go dark momentarily. Basically due to incompetence. I'm not 100% sure how to set OBS up so that doesn't happen. But here, because we're not in orbit, I don't need to do anything at this point. So, keep having a look. I mean, we've got Light over there and Mun. And there's been some sort of updates done, basically since I last played this, and now I've turned the graphics settings up because I can, because I now have a graphics board that isn't made entirely of potato. The Mun looks better. There are other mods you can put in that make it look even better. I don't have those. Right, let's get back to Kerbin's Sphere of Influence and work out how on earth we're going to get home, and then potentially, with a bit of luck, design Lawn Dart 7, which will be a little bit more capable. Because obviously we've now got a lot of we've got a lot of tourists excuse me, sorry, who want to do basically what we've just done, except they want to orbit. Warp there, makes life simpler. And this is what I'm hoping Lawn Dart 7 is going to be able to come out here and catch some more bits. So I'm going to do that. What I now need to do is get that periapsis down, so we will do this. And incidentally, the best time to adjust your periapsis is at apoapsis and vice versa. And while I'm out here, oh dear, we're going to see, this is saying we're going to have a second Mun encounter, which I don't want. But at the moment, what we're going to do, see, this is saying we're going to go back round Kerbin, and then we're going to hit Mun again. So I could actually stop around here and save an awful lot of fuel with effectively a gravity assist off Mun to come around and do this again. I'm not. I could, but I'm not. I find such things scary. Yes, so while I'm out here, every metre per second I burn has a much bigger effect on this side of the orbit. If I was down here, I could have a much bigger effect up here. If I start burning around here, I can change the orbital parameters a bit, but I don't really want to. I mean, if we look, see, we're not quite in the level we need, and I'm going to have to cut this off very shortly. What I'll do is actually trim it there and go back to a much lower level. And again, I want to get this down to about 30. That'll do. What I found is if you go much below 30, you're digging deep in the atmosphere, you generate a lot more heating, and you can have some control issues. You may have noticed as I'm zooming through the atmosphere, I occasionally jump out of the ×4 speed warp back to ×1. This is largely because the system struggles. So I can zoom back to here. Like that. Go back onto here like so. Where is Kerbin? Ah, oh, beautiful Kerbin. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. What I'm now going to do is speed up again to get to a little bit outside the atmosphere. Turn that back to surface. And then I'm going to let Jeb fly the thing back through the atmosphere because he's far, far better at it than I am. What to do is do that, slow down. I'm sorry, I just want to close the doors. Visual thing looks better. So here we go. So this is basically showing how a craft I have used previously to do something, and it only just managed it. Now you have the mission planning unlocked. Gets an awful lot better. Becomes a lot more capable. And with a bit of luck, we'll land home safely. And I say we can go into Lawn Dart 7, which is going to save some parts. What I need is more performance. Now the question is, if I take 3 parts out, so basically I'm swapping a fuel tank. I'm going to take the 2 stacked fuel tanks and replace them with single ones. That saves me 3 parts. It's not perfect because what it means, I can't put a 3rd booster on because the boosters take 4 parts, including the other bit. However, I can also save a fin. So what I can do is I can get this same craft, but with 3 boosters instead of 2. that has significantly more performance to it. And then when I want to do tourist flights, I can take out this... what I want to do is take this science capsule out and put in a passenger cabin. And then away we go. And that should work. Should. And then I've got plenty of tourists. I can fly that a little bit of time. And that will give me plenty of funding. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to have a second... a single more part that I can use for a I can put some more science on board, because then I can bring out the thermometer and the barometer out for this. But there we go. But I've got basically 3 goals to try and unlock with science at this point. The fuel tanks, which we've discussed. There's a thing about that. I would quite like to unlock some larger engines. However, before I want to unlock the engines, I also want to unlock a probe core, because landing on Mun is... it's not that hard to do. Well, difficulty with the part count, but it's fairly straightforward to do. A simple lander is a probe core, a solar panel, and a battery, and then a small fuel tank and a small engine. And it can then land. You don't need landing gear, you can land on the engine thing, and if you topple over at the end, you don't really care. You stick an antenna on it, and you can then beam science back. You can also stick a small satellite into orbit, built in pretty much the same way, and you can put one around Mun in pretty much the same way, and then whenever a science contract comes up that is go get some science from Mun, go get some science from Mun orbit, go get some science from Kerbin orbit, you just switch to the appropriate craft and say, give me some science. It's a little bit spammy. Those missions tend to pay quite well, though, which is useful. Anyway, I'm going to just hit fast forward on this last little piece of landing, and I will catch you back at the Space Centre. And here we are back at the Space Centre. So yes, 94 science. We'll see whether that's enough. I can't remember if it's 90 or 95 we need. Let's have a little look. Are these 90 or 90? No, these are 90, so I can do one of those in a minute. Good. So there's 2 choices. Probe core first, or bigger fuel tanks. Now the bigger fuel tanks will... Sorry, the fuel tanks are that one. The fuel tanks will help with getting the contracts to get people around Mun. That will help with getting contracts for science from Mun. The key bit is actually these probes are way lighter than the capsules. So if we decide which we're going to do, let's have a little look on here. So I can take one more contract. So these here, this is flybys. Now this won't give me any more science. What it will do is give me a lot more people. I am very tempted. Yeah, excuse me, my throat's thick. I'm not doing any more aircraft missions. I'm very tempted. I'm going to grab that one while I can, because that's expensive. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to go and grab 48,000. See, this is the other issue. That will put let me land, and I will get a lot more science. It's not going to give me that much in the way of rewards. This gives me a lot of cash, but not a lot of science. I'm actually going for this one, and I'm going to grab the probe core, which I need. I'm going to grab the solar panel, which I need. I'm going to grab that battery, which I need. And to be honest, I don't need anything else. I've got some basic legs, which I'm not going to use. Lights. I can afford them, but what I haven't got is the parts capability to do anything with them. So what we're now going to do is something a little bit different. I was going to do Lawn Dart 7, which is the passenger version. You can see on here what I'm looking at replacing is those 2 fuel tanks. We'll replace with one larger one. they'll be replaced, they'll be replaced. I can actually put one up here as well then, and I've got a much, much, much more capable vehicle. However, what we're now going to do is zoom in a little bit on here. We are going to build our first probe. And this is going to be Mun Ranger 1. Because it's going to land on the Mun. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, right, so I need that. I need that. It needs a battery. It needs a solar panel. And it's going to get one. This has a reaction wheel inside it. It's not much, but it has one. I've done it again. Zoom, right. Yeah, I need to set the zoom, set the focus point so I can see what I'm doing. Right, so I need that. I also need now something I haven't needed before. I need a Cometron antenna, which can sit there. Because I'm going to be beaming science back, I need some science. The goo pod is quite nice, but it's a bit big. So what I'm going to do is instead put a thermometer there. Now all that's going to do is science from the surface of the Mun. But if we have a little look, we have on here land on the Mun. Okay, I've got to return safely from the Mun, but land on the Mun. Psi data from surface of the Mun. Transmit some back. That'll complete that contract, which frees up another contract slot. Get out of that. Right. Go away. Go away. Don't want that. But if we look in here now, this craft is massing 1.25 tons. Well, if I have a look in the pods, that there is quite a lot heavier. Now, obviously, this uses up more parts, but that is that bit. So I'm then going to say I need to turn that into a lander. Well, there's a very simple way of doing that, which is that. Now, to be honest, one of these fuel tanks, so these slightly larger ones, if I put a capsule on top of that, that can land on Mun and return to Kerbin. So this will have no problems. We're not coming back because this thing can't fly back through the atmosphere. I don't have... This is where things get slightly interesting. I don't have the aerodynamic shroud to put on top of this. So this needs to be flown carefully through the atmosphere. But coupling is one of those. We are then going to have one of those and another one of those. That is our upper stage launch vehicle and also get me to the Mun. That is basically circularise around the Mun and land is the idea there. I now need something that can stick this into space. And what I'm going to try and do is keep this light. I actually want this to be quite a simple vehicle. So I'm going to go with 3 of those. I'm going to stick a swivel underneath it, and I'm going to see whether that can get off the ground. So let's have a little look here. So mass is 12 tons, parts 15. Yeah, it's not going to show me the thruster weight of that, but I think I could be wrong. I think that will actually get where we need to. And it's got spare parts. And the beauty of it having spare parts is I can now come in here and play with this a little bit. Because what I want to do is put the panels like that so that it's got much more chance of actually getting panels. I want to go into science and I'm going to stick a barometer on it as well, because you never know. I mean, the Mun's in vacuum, but we don't know that. We're not certain. I'm going to put a goo pod on the top. And what I want to do is see if I can get that to Mun. Place your bets. This has got capabilities we haven't previously had. Specifically, this has got solar panels. So this can this can survive a lot longer in space. I mean, that would actually do quite nicely just as a generic orbital satellite. But we are going to, first off, try and get this to the Mun. Again, we are going to warp to sunrise. Now, we are actually using power doing this, as you note on there. Now, the reason we're using power is because this thing costs energy to run it. So I'm going to turn the reaction wheels on. We're going to get a full thrust. And it can get off the ground. That was the key bit. Was, did this thing have the capability to get off the ground or not? And as you notice, it's a much, much simpler rocket than we've been using previously. There's no boosters, there's nothing fancy on it. What I do need to do, however, is be a little bit careful how this one flies. This can't go too quickly through the atmosphere. The front end is too blunt, and all this equipment on the top will overheat. So I need to be at least a little bit careful about that. Until we get a little bit higher, at least. So, carry on that way. We don't have the ability to do anything fancy with manoeuvring at this point either. These probes, this probe is quite basic. It's got stability, which is the thing the Stay Putnik doesn't have, which is a bit of a joke on the early American satellites. Obviously, the Soviets got up into space with Sputnik, and the American first rocket attempts were interesting, shall we say? They weren't massively successful. They were quite interesting, and they sort of dubbed it Kaputnik, Stay Putnik, and all this sort of stuff because it didn't really go anywhere. I'm hoping I can get this into orbit. No, I'm not going to get that into orbit at this point. Yeah, that's not. Let's see if I can. We're going to try. I may be able to get this right. Basically, it's not very stable. This is because it's blunt at the front. If this fails, what I will do is go back to the space, the VAB, and I will just stick some fins on the back of this. They don't need to be particularly powerful fins. They just need to be fins. But all I need to do at the moment is keep that roughly within that circle. Because if it goes outside that circle, we're going to flip around again. And the problem here is you look at the apoapsis, we are not climbing anything like high enough at this point. So yeah, I strongly suspect this one isn't going to work. Yeah, there's no way this is going to work. Okay, I'll catch you back at the spaceplane hangar in a minute. This is going to basically be left to fall into the water. Here we have overheating effects. Yeah, so I'm just trying to. I'm killing this thing quickly if I can now. So here we are back. We have spare parts capability on this. What I'm going to do is take some. I'm just going to put some fins on there. Slightly larger ones. Why not? Yeah, purpose of that is keep this bit stable. So save that again. You know, I could probably put the Science Junior in there as well. It is quite heavy, but it will give us a lot more science. So if I do that, let's see what happens. I put one of those there and then do that. Doesn't knock us down too much, and we've got the parts. Basically, if it gets to the Mun surface, it'll do quite nicely. I probably do actually have the parts spare, thinking about it, to put some landing legs on that. But actually, let's do that. I have 3 parts spare, which I think I do. Yeah, we've got a couple of parts spare. And ground. See, I've got these. I've actually got enough to put 4 on it, so I'm going to put 4 legs on the thing. We put those there, and we say start retracted. There we are. So that's now using up all of our parts. It's got every science experiment we've got on board. It's got battery power, and we should be all right. That antenna it's carrying isn't brilliant, but is probably about all we've got. So stability on, full throttle, fire. And the liftoff performance is slightly worse now because the thing is slightly heavier. So what I'm going to do is actually get get the velocity up a little bit going vertically, and then start the gravity turn when we're a little bit higher up and a little bit higher speed. So start it now. A little bit subtle, try this. Again, this thing can't go too quickly lower in the atmosphere, which is fortunate in some ways because it's not powerful enough to, but there we go. Put that to orbit straight away. You see, we start off with a chunk of orbital velocity. Reason being, Kerbin rotates, as has been noted before. So we're now getting to the point I can go over a little bit more. Now again, this can go in a slightly stranger profile. If this thing, if I can get a good gravity turn, it'll be brilliant. If I can't, I'm not going to lose any sleep. I mean, as you see, this thing's already got 3,000 odd meters per second of performance available to it, which is... It could probably get to Mun, land and take off again. It's not going to. Mun has several biomes, so again, little areas you can go into to grab science. You can like land in some of the craters and land on the midlands of the Mun, the highlands and the lowlands, which again give you multiple science locations. This thing could potentially work as a hopper to land in one place and then go fly somewhere else. We'll see how much fuel it's got left afterwards. I'm not planning to do that. I might, if necessary, I may just send another one. This is our go land on the Mun and beam science back mission. Leave that on there because electric charge matters. We've got quite a lot on this. The previous craft I've had 50. This has obviously got 200. Well, it's got 200. The probe's got 10 within it, and the battery adds 200, which is quite nice. Speed-wise, we're doing all right, and we are going at a fair whack, but we've got quite high up before we did it. Interesting when that pops out. Abort. You can have you can assign various action groups. Abort. In theory, it's supposed to be your launch escape. You press the escape key, and that triggers. So you can put things on the front. Until you upgrade things later, you don't get custom action groups, but you can say, I want the abort action group to do something else, and sort of cheat it a little bit. So yeah, you've got one action group. I mean, you can go and say, I'm going to use the turn the lights on action group to deploy other things. So yeah, this stage I did actually want this to get it fully into orbit, and then I've got the other one for the mission. So this may not have as much fuel left over as I hoped. However, I'm going to cut that there. I noticed the icon's a little bit different, and we're going to come into there. I'm going to add a maneuver to orbit, which is like so. Don't need to be quite that big. That'll do. We are going to rotate towards it. As you see, 15 seconds. It's we're going to have about 1,500 meters per second of delta V, which is, those who don't know, delta V is how you measure rocket's performance. It is the ability of the thing to change its velocity. Delta change and V being velocity, fairly obviously. So here we go. So this needs to burn 15 seconds, so I want to get to about 10 seconds prior to where it needs to be, and then get ready to fire the engines again. And then once we've done that and we're in orbit, I will configure the thing to go where it needs to get to. And this performance thing is all assumes you burn at full whack, so that is what we're going to do. You can cause yourself problems with certain parts on the craft at this point, with acceleration being a little bit too high. There we are. 10 meters per second square, we are now in orbit. Right, so I need to come onto here and configure this thing for operations. So I need to extend the antenna. Basically, I mean, at the moment we're not in communication with anything. So up here, not connected. So I can press the maneuver buttons all I like and nothing happens, because I'm not in contact with the ground station. This is the other problem I'm going to have around Mun. I need to land on the Kerbin-facing side of Mun, because otherwise I'm not going to have any control whatsoever. Let me go there, add a manoeuvre, node control locked. Yeah, so basically I can't add a manoeuvre until I'm over one of the tracking sites. This gets a lot easier as you get further away. Basically, Kerbin is blocking my ability to see things at the moment. There we are. So now I've got control again. What I can do here is go into that, add manoeuvre. And what I need is something that's going to get me... I'll lock the Mun periapsis. That's what I'm trying to get to. Again, if I burn here, what I find is I can... Yeah, see, there's the problem we've got slightly on that. I need to... Yeah, I'm not quite in a level orbit. That actually works because that'll put me in an orbit around Mun, which means I will basically have line of sight to Kerbin, which is what I need. So I'm going to do that. I'm now going to position myself in place here. And what I need to do is hope that when I get round here, I'm going to just warp around here, I have communication capability, because if I don't, I can't fire the engine. Which is going to be slightly annoying. We shall see. That looks rather good, because there's a station just about underneath. Burn time 20 seconds, so if I go to there... So we're about where I need to be. We have full communication, which is good. And at T-minus 10, we will fire the engines. And this is the other thing. I need to be in range when I need to stop the engines as well. Because otherwise that doesn't work either. One of the things that's worth doing, which I probably will do when funds allow, which is what the Kerbin astronaut tourist flights are all about, is put some communication satellites around Kerbin and around the Mun, or at least around Kerbin. I'm just orbiting out here somewhere. And what it means is I will find it a lot easier to be in connection to at least one of them. So, do that, and then we'll burn a little bit more slowly. Like that. What's that going to do in terms of... Yeah, that's good enough. That's fine. There is something I need to do now, however, because at the moment we're pointing flat, and pointing flat means, I mean, we're in shadow at the moment, so we're not gaining any power. What I need to do is hold pointing... There we are, see, back gaining power again. I need to hold that way. What this means is I'm pointing upwards, so one or other of these panels, because there's 3, should be facing the Mun most of the time. No, sorry, not the Mun, the Sun. So here we are coming out here. You can see, because we put a proper antenna on this thing, we're talking back with a reasonable strength, which is nice. And as you can see, we pretty much should always have some form of communication, as long as we don't go behind the Mun. Now this is where the problem comes. This is why I don't want to be in equatorial orbit. The Mun, I want to be in like quite an elliptical one. No, so I don't want to add a manoeuvre there. I want to go in and warp into the Mun's sphere of influence. Basically it'll just help, and then I can start saying that I need to get to such and such a point, make a manoeuvre to put myself in Mun orbit. Ding, there we are. So what I need to do is go... So we're going to go to there, add a manoeuvre, and we're going to hit the braking engine, like so. And yeah, that'll do. That'll get us into Mun orbit, you see. And hopefully in such a position that we're not eclipsed very often. So that'll do. And what I'm now going to do is get a little bit closer to that. At 4 seconds of burn of the engine, we'll do that. Now, if this thing wasn't going to land, I would actually go in and adjust the engine so that its throttle is much, much, much less. I'm not, because I don't know how much I'm going to need for the landing. So that's there. We are now very near the time we want to do that, so I can just position so I can see it. And we'll come in. This manoeuvre planner it really is something to, if you want to play the game, it's something to learn how to use. This is very, very firmly your friend. And let's line up so we point in approximately the right direction. Later on, when you get more advanced probes as well, they can handle the hold in the same way Jeb handles the hold. Now I'm actually going to do this a little bit differently. I'm not going to burn at full throttle for 4 seconds. What I'm going to do is burn at a lower level for longer, because I've got more control over it. I don't need the orbit to be particularly elliptical. There we go. We are now in Mun orbit, and you see, because of that, I can work out what I want to do. Landing, I need to land on the side facing Kerbin, which is part of the problem. This orbit's a little bit difficult. What I really need to do now is wait until this side is over here. So I am going to... Mun's going this way. I'm actually going to sit in orbit for a while before I do that. See, I've done this before, and not in this save. I mean, a few years. I've not actually played Kerbal apart from this video series for quite a few years. Yeah, I put in perfect position, and then I've ended up shading my own solar panels with the rest of the ship. I get roughly where I need to get. And then what happens is everything falls apart. So what I'm doing, I'm getting... What I want is a potential landing site to be both... Let's have a look at that. Both in sunlight, so it's going to be down here somewhere, but also facing Kerbin, because if it's not, I'm not going to be able to beam anything back. That honking great crater looks quite attractive, doesn't it? So let's just go to there, add a manoeuvre. What I'm going to do is that. And that will put us very low over there, and then what I can do is brake a little bit further and hopefully land. We'll see. And yeah, hopefully that will work. It might actually be easier to do the manoeuvre about there, because it will... if I do the manoeuvre there, it will be in sight of Kerbin. Where I had it, it might not have been. So, I want to warp to next manoeuvre. I want to... It's not going to let me just warp to manoeuvre. So anyway, I'm going to go around there until I get there. What I want to do is warp to here. Oh, there we are. Warp here. It's going to let me do it that way. Obviously, if I go... It looks like if I'm going too close to the manoeuvre, it's not going to let me. So now we've lost communications. Okay, fair enough. Cancel the manoeuvre. Can't cancel the manoeuvre. I'm going to have to wait until I'm back somewhere down here. So let's do that until we have communications again, and I will then redo my manoeuvre to land. There we are. I'm not far. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to hit the crater now. Yeah, whatever. So, don't need the manoeuvre to do this. What I need to do is go surface. I need a retrograde burn. So, point backwards and fire engines. Yeah, that's near enough. And what that's going to do is lower my periapsis down. Sort of want it on the surface, sort of don't. A little bit above would be nice, but very definitely somewhere where it's pointing at Kerbin and where it's got some sunlight. And again, you see we're burning off quite a bit here. Orbital velocity, that's what I need to kill, which I'm killing slowly here. I've also got to fight gravity. That'll do. I'm not adjusting that anymore. Right. Warp here. The problem is the orbital velocity. Not manoeuvre, sorry. Warp here. Stop. I'm going the wrong way. I thought I was going the other way around. Right. Deploy landing gear. Turn around. And I'm not going to be able to do this. I don't have enough fuel to land. I thought I did. I don't. Never mind. Oh, I might need to surface. Yeah, anyway. What I'm going to do is that and hit the brakes. And we're going to run out of fuel. Right, there we are. So this is now going to crash. So what I'm going to do is observe the goo, which we haven't done from out here yet. I'm going to transmit that back. Which is going to cost me a lot of electricity, but it's done. This will give me some science, you see. Log temperature, I'm going to transmit that. Somewhere on here there is the barometer, which is there. Log pressure, and I'm going to transmit that. So that's giving me this craft is going. It's going to land on Mun. It's not going to survive the impact. I'm this much performance short. So yeah. No, the other one I can do is conduct materials study. Yeah. So I'm not going to get. I've already done that near, so I'm not going to gain anything from that. And this is then going to impact onto the surface of Mun at a fair whack. So we are going to land. So let's watch this come in. And then we are going to impact, and I'm going to have to modify this. It's fairly straightforward. What I need to do is put a little bit more power on the second stage, which will do. And I've unlocked some more science doing this. Not enough to unlock anything useful, but I have unlocked some more. Here we go. Radar altimeter. Whee! Bang. There we go. Return to the space center. Yes. So we have just successfully made a new Mun crater. New missions. All contract missions are in, so I can't do any of that. That's not enough science to unlock anything, so what I need to do is modify this. there's a fairly simple way. What I need is another part. So what I'm going to do is modify the landing gear to be 3 legs. That's going to come down there. Now there is a problem here. Remember how this thing struggled to get off the pad in the first place? Then lift that up a bit. This now may struggle a little bit more. See, I've not really added much in the way of performance to that. Yeah, see, that's slightly problematic. That may not get off the ground. Gonna find out. Yeah, if this gets into orbit, I'll be... well, if this gets off the pad without everything falling apart. Let's warp to sunrise again so we can see it. There we go. Sunrise, stability on, throttle to full. Oh, we're getting off the pad. Right, okay. Well, we're going up. That's the main thing. We are going up. What I'm hoping is this upper stage. The extra fuel I've put on that, I'm hoping, will help. Obviously, here we're going to spend a lot more time getting to altitude. The alternative is you make this lower stage more powerful, which... So it may be I end up taking the Science Junior out and saying, this is a bit big. We can't do this. So what I was hoping is this will provide me the science to unlock the larger fuel tanks, which will allow me to do the tourist missions, which will then give me more money. That's the thinking. If I did the tourist missions first, I'm going to end up with a lot more money, but no science capability to spend it on, which then causes other problems. Here we are. Keep going like this. The other issue is we may also be a little bit low when we fire this stage. We shall see. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and put this on fast forward. Otherwise this video is going to be too long. Yes, and I think it's fairly obvious at this point this one isn't going to work. I do have an idea, however. So what I'm going to do is that. Abort, can't do anything on abort. That is abandoned mission. The quick way. That's just not going to make orbit. There's not enough performance on that first stage with the extra fuel in it. So I'm going to do something not exactly radical, but I'm going to put the more powerful Reliant engine under there, which should give me better thrust off the pad. That doesn't steer, so I'm now relying on aerodynamic fins for steering. So I'm going to use different fins that are better at that. And the upper stage engines are fine because they can swivel, so that'll do. So again, save, launch, and we'll try this. This is going to be the last mission of this video, I feel, but we will see what we can do. So I need that, full throttle, off the pad. And that lifted off a little bit better. But we are relying on aerodynamics at this point. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is flying this fairly steeply into space, and then using the other engines to circularise the orbits and head for Mun. You can actually fly direct from Kerbin to the Mun. You just need to time the launch very, very well. I'm not that good, so I'm not doing that. Now, one thing I noted in the previous one, I got this T to be T minus 10 seconds, and pretty much holding. What it means is I was always 10 seconds away from the highest point in the atmosphere, or the highest point of the apoapsis. The problem with that was it wasn't getting high enough quickly enough. So yeah, this second stage isn't particularly powerful in the atmosphere, which is why I'm using this to get me as high as I can before we switch to it. You see straight away the surface velocity is dropping, but we are still going up, so hopefully this will be able to get upwards. Yeah, do that because I want to look at orbital straight away. It's interesting to note in the previous mission, you note how the optimism went from I'll land and I might be able to hop around to different different biomes, and how quickly that changed to I don't even have the fuel to land. So yeah, this one here, well, maybe in a similar boat. Whether I've actually got the performance here to do what I need to do is looking a little bit dubious. I think I need a more powerful first stage. I may be changing the first stage to a solid rocket booster and putting a more potent engine on this one. Yes, and as you see, the level of funding we've got is now rather low. There is a bailout you can take, which helps, but we shall see. What I need is missions that will succeed rather quickly. Yes, off the back of that, this this playthrough may be going bankrupt, and I may be starting again. We'll see. We will see. I may just take the bailout and we'll just carry on and see what we can come back with. Yeah. This flight is not going to work. I'm not getting anywhere near orbit, so again I'm going to cut that, and we are going to abandon. Yeah. So, don't have a lot of money. What I need to do is go into here. Bailout grant. See, that's going to give me some funds. I can't go to 25%. It's going to be a lot of money. It's going to cost me most of my reputation. Done. Okay, fine. We've now got a bit more money. So yes, didn't particularly want to do that, but need to. That needs to come off. Or does it? Let me just reload. I just want to try something. Don't save that. I want to reload Mun Ranger 1. Contains locked or invalid parts. Oh, so it's Mun Ranger. Yeah, it's just not the one I want. I want that one. So load that. It's the one I had. I'm just going to try taking that off. Take that off. Take that off. Put a bigger engine there. Stick that on the bottom of it, and put that there. Yeah, see, that's potentially giving me quite a bit more performance. Let's try that. Just quickly. This essentially the second stage is firing far too low in the atmosphere to use the Terrier. So hopefully having the second stage as a swivel will help. And we've still got the Terrier on the final stage for Mun operations. This thing's not as efficient when it gets into orbit, but frankly if we're not going to get into orbit, its efficiency doesn't matter. So again, I'm going to keep quiet and we're going to see how well this works. I'll be back shortly at staging and we'll see how we go. Yeah, so again, this isn't ideal. This is going to get to orbit. It's going to head to the Mun. I suspect it may struggle to do anything when it gets there, but we'll try. We'll have a look. Right, so we're now in orbit. Where is... So what I need to do is hopefully about there. Yeah, this isn't going to have the performance to do it either. Yeah. The reason I know that is because I'm going to use more than half of that, and I know I've got to enter Mun orbit and so on and so forth. We'll give it a go. We'll see. It might, it probably won't, but we shall see. See how close we are. Because if we're quite close, I know basically what I need to do is take that Science Junior out, and then we are there. Hopefully, when I get around here, I'll have signal again. I do. Good. Right. Guess who forgot to extend the antenna? Right. Anyway, so again we're on a slightly elliptical orbit. I need to circularize this. I need to find out exactly. So I need a braking burn like that, down to about that. Yeah, and yet again that is going to out. Yeah, that is going to leave me with not enough fuel to land. Wheeze it. Let's have a little think. The problem is we're going to get further round. That is going to be away from Kerbin. So I'm going to have to... basically, I need the landing point to be up here somewhere, so we'll be in. But if I get to there, and then I should be able to hit the brakes. I don't think this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. So, bear with me. To show a sign of confidence, I'm going to lower the landing gear. Right, what I'm going to do is go warp there. And I need to... Right, now if I burn earlier here, that is going to put my landing point further round, which isn't what I want to do. So what happens if I cancel that manoeuvre and do it a little bit later? See, what I'm wanting to... I'm wanting to get the landing point so that I am about where I need it to be. So if I do that... yeah. Well, if I wait until I'm up here to land, it should work, sort of, honest, maybe. What I can do is rotate that slightly. What I'm doing is getting the landing area to be sunlight, so I've got at least a cat in hell's chance of making this work. Let's do that. Don't want it to go into the Mun. Because if it goes into the Mun, I'm going to be landing where I don't want to. 9,000 up. See, I'm going to put on orbital velocity as I do that, which is a problem. Because I think that's why we're not going to work. Never mind, I'm going to try. I'm going to do it anyway. So, further down here. Again, I rather suspect we're going to be making a crater shortly. Yeah, anyway, never mind. Let's have a look. So that needs to be adjusted just slightly. And basically, again, I'm going to do this a little bit more slowly, so I can keep a bit of control over it. Now, if you notice, the orbital velocity is dropping dramatically, but what, as I say, when I get to this part of the orbit, it'll be a lot faster, which is a little bit of a problem. Link to that, and there we are. That's about where I want that to be. Cancel that. And I'm now going to see. See that? That's what I'll need to do when I'm there to put myself on a landing trajectory. I've then got to cancel out my remaining velocity, so that's going to be extremely tight. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. However, I'm going to do it anyway. So we're going to warp to there. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go round here. I'm not in communication. Oh, that's fine actually, because not in communication, I'm not that bothered about. I am that bothered because I want to land this thing and I can't. That's the low point in the orbit. That is going to be out of sight for quite a while. So what I need to do... Now I'm out of comms range as well. I need to get back into communications range. As we go past that point, I need to put myself back so the solar panels work. It's fairly easy to do. See, none of the science... Well, some of the science stuff might actually work. Let's have a little look. Observe the goo. What am I going to get if I send that back from here? I'm not going to get any science by sending it back. Thermometer... I'm not going to... I basically gathered all the science I'm going to get from space just by sending this stuff back. What I need to do now is fast forward a little bit. Basically until we're back round here. So I'm going to do that. It's the beauty of satellites, they don't get bored. See, if I now do that and try to land there, borderline daylight, borderline night, but yeah, we'll see. Warp to next manoeuvre, warp to next manoeuvre, warp to next manoeuvre. What I want is the warp here, which I'm not going to get. Oh, never mind. Right. Yes, I mean, again, as you can see, this is the orbital velocity I need to kill, which I just flat out can't do. You may be wondering why I don't just leave this thing in orbit as a satellite. The antenna it's got isn't suitable for that. You need to use a different sort, which I didn't fit. I can see what the next mission is going to be, putting a satellite around Mun. Yeah, anyway, this again isn't going to work, so this will be the final flight of the day. And we will go and make a crater, because that is about all this thing is good for at the moment. So that'll do. There we go. So yeah, essentially what I need, and what I know I need, is to get to Mun without touching the onboard fuel. That's got to be the goal here. Yeah. Get rid of that node. See, surface velocity, and we can't kill that. So at this point, what I might as well just do is that. And then again, this is going to go plummet. Can't do any more from the materials bay. No, can't even transmit signs from that. Yeah, okay. Well, yes, okay. Let's watch another crash, shall we? Whee! Coming down, can't. Pointing in vaguely the right. See, what I'd love to be doing at this point is firing the engine for the final approach and landing. Whereas what we're actually going to be doing is saying, hello, crater. Whee! Zoom in a bit more. See, Kadunk. So we're not that short. We are a little bit short. We're not that short. Space Center again. Yeah. To coin a phrase, bugger. Anyway, never mind. So the reputation is now rubbish because we took that bailout and so on and so forth. So, yeah. I'm going to call it quits there. I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. If you need even more advice on how not to play Kerbal Space Program, I will see you shortly. Thank you very much and goodbye.